We had every intention of hooking up this old chopper to clear some fence lines, and notice right here we are missing some parts for the PTO shaft. So we're gonna have to go run to the store and grab that. And then we also got quite a bit of a hydraulic leak coming out of that hydraulic hoses. It's been a problem for a while, so while we're at the store we'll pick up a couple new ends for that and hopefully get that up and running as well. So gonna hold off on doing this for a little bit and switch gears, come back to it later this afternoon. So we're going to switch to the 4-row stock chopper, a little bit wider. It'll cut a little bit more as we cut our lines for our fences, but it's just the way it is. So we'll get this hooked up and hopefully have no more problems. Not sure if it's showing up on the camera, but we've got a pretty serious hydraulic leak here. So the hydraulic hoses raise and lower this unit, and just bringing it in from where we had it parked to the shop to check and grease everything, we noticed that it kept falling and it's made this big puddle here, and that's only after about 2 minutes worth of use. So I got to get that figured out, check the hydraulic oil levels, and that all seems to be fine. So we didn't lose too much, but we're definitely losing some in here, so got to get that figured out. We ended up switching hydraulic hoses to the other line. There's 2 different hydraulic ports for this tractor, and we were able to use the other lever, and that doesn't seem to leak, so we're going to give that a shot and see how it goes. We're off to our remote grazing site, which is in partnership with the Wisconsin DNR. This is a grassland that is restored prairie, but is experiencing a lot of invasive species, particularly brush. So honeysuckle, buckthorn, multiflora rose, that sort of stuff. And we are using the cattle to try to help them keep everything down. This is a place where they stock pheasants for pheasant hunting in the winter, so very high traffic, high use area, but just trying to use cattle to regenerate the land similar to the way the bison herds did a long time ago. And that way the DNR doesn't have to use quite as many human resources as well as chemical resources to try to keep this brush down. So it's been a good project. We've been working on it for about 5 years now, and they've been a good partner for us. So we'll go there, we'll set some new fence lines for the next couple paddock moves, and then we'll come back home and work on the next thing. got all of our lines mowed and we're ready to go for that. Just moving water lines and putting up the new fence, and then we'll be set to move the cows through. Out on this pasture, our water tank, we do have water lines just like at home. Again, simple float tank, water tank, keeps all the cows nice and fed as far as water goes. It just keeps refilling as they drink it down. So unhook this and we'll get it moved. With just a herd of dry cows here, we just use one salt and mineral block. Pretty simple for them, and they go through about one every 2 or 3 weeks. Let's go, cows! Let's go, girls! Come on, cows! Come on, cows! On this pasture we have mostly fall bred cows and then some of our replacement heifers for next year. So calves like 116 here who have the ear tag in the right ear means it's a heifer, and that's what the vast majority of these animals are. Got a couple of our crossbreds here, and then there's a few steers as well from that we bought in. Come on, Mama. So you can barely see the cows out there in that long grass. This is mostly warm season grass, combination of big blue stem, some prairie flowers, a little bit of clover in here, a little bit of brush that we're working on, but for the most part, pretty nice grass. It's about shoulder tall on the cows, and some of those younger calves are going to be pretty much buried. So get this chopper out of here and head back home. Back in the shop now, we brought that broken PTO over and we're gonna fix that up. It just needs an end cap on it. I happen to have the right piece in my parts area, so we'll grab that and get that all going and squared away. The inside of a PTO has this yoke on it, and that allows it to move in all different directions as the tractor turns and still spins. So we're going to steal another one of these caps off of it. These caps have ball bearings on the inside. I don't know if it comes through on the camera, but it's full of grease, has ball bearings on the inside to help that facilitate that spin. And then we use these snap rings to put it into place. The key is to get it in there really nice and tight so that we can get the snap rings in. It should be pretty easy. We've got our vice grip finally all set up, so we'll get that done. So you can see on this side there's a snap ring. We pinch that nice and tight so that's in there, and then on the other side we'll put the new snap ring on. This is the problem with the old one. It's all crazy and out of whack. So assume that's what happened and why it popped off, but we'll get the new one in and be ready to go. Easy enough. It turns freely, which is great, and we'll be set. So take that back to the chopper and get it back installed. The only other thing to do on this old chopper is to improve some of the hydraulics. A couple of them leak, so if we have time and have the right pieces over at the shop over there, we'll get that done too. This is the hay cut we cut pretty recently, as well as the field that we grazed. Certainly the area where we grazed, I think, is ready to be cut and baled up or grazed again, depending on what we end up doing. But the other part where we hayed it is probably a couple weeks away from being ready to be hayed again, but it's coming back very nicely. I'm pretty pleased with how it looks. One of the questions we get a lot One of the common questions I get is, how did you learn how to do all this stuff? Did you have a farming background? And the answer is yes and no. My grandparents had a farm that we spent a lot of time there, but I always really grew up as a city kid in the suburbs of Milwaukee. And so some of it just makes sense to me and I can figure it out and look at it. A lot of it takes a lot of time of research, asking around. We do a lot of field days where you go out and see another farm and see what they do. That's how we got a lot of inspiration for our water lines and our fencing and the way we do our grazing plans. But some of this mechanical stuff, it's through trial and error, it's through doing it a few times, and most commonly, especially on some of these things that are a little bit more complicated, luckily there's videos like this that help people figure out how to do it. And so we spend a lot of time doing that sort of research in order to be able to figure out exactly what we need to do in order to make this work better. As I'm heading over to the other farm to reinstall that PTO shaft, I thought I'd answer one of the questions that we get all the time, and that is, how did I learn how to do all of this? And did I grow up on a farm? And the answer is sort of. My grandparents had a farm. It's the farm that we have the mama cows at, and so I spent a lot of time there growing up. When I got a little bit older, in my teenage years, I'd spend a week or two there helping out, and then after high school is when I took over the family sweet corn business, and that's what I did during college. So had a lot of exposure, and some of the old tricks that I know come from that is just being there and being exposed to that. But a lot of the stuff that we do wasn't things that we did growing up. It was very much a crop farm. There were dairy cows prior to me really being involved in my grandparents' operation. I think I was in kindergarten when they sold the brown Swiss milking cows. So everything that I know as far as grazing and fence installation and all of that stuff is all things that I've learned later. So it's a variety of pasture walks where I go to another farm and see what they do. That's how we got our inspiration for our fencing and our water system and all of that. But then things like this where we're fixing these equipment, some of it comes from projects that we did when I was younger, and a lot of it also I just learned from YouTube and researching these things on my own. In the old cold storage shop here is where we keep a few other extra supplies, and so it's just a matter of finding a drawer with the parts I'm looking for. None of these look really great, so we may just need to get new ones. Found a pair of hydraulic ends. They look pretty good, pretty new, so we'll give those a shot. Now I just need to find the right wrench that fits them. Appears to be 1 1/16, and hopefully a 1-inch wrench will do it.